purpose of this video is to examine climate data that is stored in the Oak Ridges Moraine Groundwater Program database. And I'm going to start by going to oakridgeswater.ca and clicking on Sign In here in the upper right. Once I get to the Oak Ridges Moraine Partners website, there's an item right at the top of the home page called Maps. Then I get a list of maps. I'm going to scroll up and down, but the one second from the top is called Time Series Analysis. In previous videos, we looked at the GeoCortex mapping portal. When we look at time series hydrographs, we're looking at a different tool that we've created called S-hydrology or Shydrology. It's a mapping tool as well, but it allows for more detailed analysis and geostatistics of the data that's in the database. So it's just a different way of connecting to our database visually. On the upper right here, you'll see the Hydrograph Explorer. That's the tool that we're in. And you'll see down in the middle here, 4 different location types that we can look at through this Hydrograph Explorer. This video is going to focus on the second one, climate stations. So now you can see the climate stations that have data in our database. And by default, we're looking at any climate station that has data from between 1992 and 2022. I'm going to extend the minimum date all the way down to the earliest time back in the 1880s. You can see, I don't know if that showed up or not, but a few more locations have appeared, and those would be locations that have climate data that ended prior to my previous minimum date of 1992. As in the GeoCortex mapping portal, I can zoom in and out with the mouse roller, and I can click and drag to pan the map. I'm going to zoom in on the city of Toronto. The other option here is the minimum period or length of data. So right now there's no limit. It's showing all locations that have climate data within this time window. But I'm going to say, show me all the locations that have 100 years of data. You'll zoom out again. You'll see there's only about a dozen here. But we're going to focus in on this one here, right in the center of the city of Toronto. And if I click on that, I get a little pop-up window where I can analyze the climate data. This will open up a new window. It's going to pull all the data from the database and load our the data into our Hydrograph Explorer, into the Hydrograph tools. You can see down here in the lower right, it's collecting the station data. And remember, we set a criteria of 100 years of data. So it's going to take a few seconds to load all of this data. While that's loading, oh, there we go. So we can see now we're in this Hydrograph tool, ShyMet version 1.9. But you can see by default, we've got over here on the left a little map that shows the location of our current climate station, and it's also got the different data types. We can also select the data range. By default, it's coming to the earliest data, earliest recorded data back in 1840, and the most recent in 2017. So this particular climate station stopped collecting data in 2017 for whatever reason, but it's still got a huge record of well over 150 years of data. So you can see the precipitation data shown here in the upper graph. There's different things we can do to zoom in on that temporally. There's these slider bars here where I can change the minimum date, and I can change the maximum date to look at a shorter period. The other thing I can do is just go up to this select data range here on the left-hand menu. And if I wanted to make it, right now it's going 1881, November 14th. If I made that end at 1891, and the same date, October the 14th, I now have a 10-year window here. You can see down here the selected data range that I've got highlighted here and shown up here in the sort of teal colored precipitation lines. The selected data range shown down here shows the 10-year period and these annual averages for that 10-year period, min, max, and so on. It's also got rainfall and snowfall. So I can move this around. What I found interesting is that if I go right to the very early data back in the 1800s, we've got a daily mean temperature of 6.3 degrees Celsius. If we go into the 1960s, we've got a daily mean temperature of 8.7. So that daily mean has gone up a couple of degrees in 100 years or so. The other thing we can do, and I'll just look at this 10-year period here, we're looking at precipitation. We can look at let's look at daily max temperature, daily min temperature, and again, we'll zoom in on a shorter period of time. There you can see the maximum temperature in green and the minimum temperature here. We're looking at a time period of about 20 years, 1894 to 1913. And you can see the temporal trends with higher temperatures in summer, decreasing in winter, and so on. Now this tool is good for looking at these types of graphs, but they're also good for looking at trends. So if I want to look at an annual summary, here's the annual summary of precipitation. So each bar in this bar graph up here is the annual precipitation with a mean of about 800 millimeters per year. If we look at for example, the daily mean temperature, again, now that this is showing the entire record of data in a way that allows us to look at the trends, but early on the temperature was down in 6.5 to 7 degrees, and more recently it's been up 8-9 degrees. So this shows a clear trend of increasing over that 150 plus year period, which is quite interesting. We could also look at the daily minimum temperature, which goes from down around 2 degrees, 2.5 degrees, up to 5 or 6 degrees here. We can also look at precipitation that falls as rainfall. We can look at snowfall, and so on. I'm going to wrap up this video by clicking on summary figures. And when we go here, this just gives us a series of summary data. In the top graph here, we're looking at the same climate station with monthly averaged mean maximum temperature in red, and in green is the mean minimum temperature per month for the entire data set from back to the 1800s. Precipitation is also shown. Dark blue is rainfall, light blue is snowfall. And then down here again you can see the map and some annual average temperatures and other climate data as well. Thanks for listening, and if you have any questions, please let us know. And thanks for your interest in our program.